Louisville football played a game. You know what that means. It's time to go outside and find a trail. How about that bounce back? Louisville goes to Stanford as one of its worst games in modern history, program history. Comes back home to host Pittsburgh for its final home game and final ACC game of the 2024 season. I didn't know what to expect. I don't have anybody could have known what to expect when you've got a team that beat Clemson at Death Valley, turns around, loses at Stanford, one of the worst teams in college football this year. How do you know what to expect? Well, what we got is what we expected from game one, game two, and throughout the 2024 season. Louisville just crushing Pittsburgh 37-9. What do you say we hike about it? So Louisville now 7-4 on the season, 5-3 in the ACC. Quite the turnaround from their performance at Stanford. Quite the turnaround. As far as dislikes, not too much. I could say something about the 7 penalties, but maybe some drop balls. But I'm really only going to mention one, and it's kind of a hangover from the Stanford game. You see what happened in Clemson, and now we've seen what happened at Pittsburgh. What happened at Stanford should never have happened. So really the biggest dislike from that game was the fact that it's kind of still a hangover from Stanford. Stanford bookend, or sandwiched, I should say properly. Stanford sandwiched in between Clemson and now Pittsburgh. A comment from Ashton Gelati after the game, speaking about the defense, he's like, this is who we are, this is what we can do. And I think everybody realizes that and expects it, and that's what part of the frustration was. And that's my dislike, not to continue to hang on about Stanford, but seeing the team's performance at Clemson, and then the bounce back they had against Pittsburgh really makes that Stanford loss sting even more so. Okay, let's get over the Stanford loss. There's plenty to like. Goodness, where to start? 505 yards of offense, holding Pittsburgh to 265 yards of offense. That's telling me we had some consistency on both sides of the ball finally. It's telling me while it wasn't clean, there was 7 penalties, it was mostly clean. The penalties weren't as costly. So that's certainly a positive. That's one thing I like. Great seeing Isaac Brown back. Obviously a lot of concern with him going down at Stanford. Comes back, gets 93 yards, averages 7.3 yards a carry. Like that a lot. Corey Brooks, he's gone over 1,000 yards receiving on the year now. Like that. Also like seeing Duke Watson staying involved. Man, how can you not like the young running backs for the Cardinals? A lot of talent there. What else do we like from that game? Obviously the W. Defense. Wow. Let's start with Ashton Gelati. A couple sacks, 3 tackles for a loss. We'll get to him as we do the grading here in a little bit on the report card, but what a performance by him, and just kind of set the tone for the defense. Stanquan Clark, what a play. 2 interceptions for him, including ending that opening drive threat from Pittsburgh. Like the defense a lot against the Panthers. Something else that I liked, and I've been looking forward to this essentially since he signed, Katarius Blue Hicks. Speedy, elusive wide receiver, got an opportunity, entered the game against Pittsburgh with 6 receptions, as I noted after the game. He's now got 12, doubling his season total, finished with 63 yards. Like seeing him getting involved. We could go on and on about what we like. Biggest like was, and we'll get to this again on a report card when we talked about the coaching staff, but the biggest like is you have to be very impressed with, in this day and age of, if you don't make the playoff, if you're out of the chance to play in your conference championship, it's logically, you could see why guys might start to, okay, I'm gonna sit out, I'm not gonna play as hard, I'm gonna think about next year, which is gonna obviously have a negative impact on the performance. That was some of the thought process about what happened to Louisville at Stanford. Have to really, really like the way the coaching staff and the players came out with a determination like they have plenty to play for, which I believe they do themselves. Pride and whatever else comes up. Now you've got motivation going into the Governor's Cup game. What do you say we jump into this report card? It's like a roller coaster. A couple weeks ago, after the Clemson game, Louisville got straight A's. Last week, wasn't straight F's, but there were F's present, that's for sure. What will we get today? I think it's certainly trending up. Let's get to it. So let's start with the quarterbacks. We saw 2 quarterbacks, Harrison Bailey coming in late to spell Tyler Shuck, who had himself a heck of a ball game, throwing for 293 yards and 2 touchdowns. As the hill tried to take my breath from me. Without an interception, connected with 7 different receivers, and had the offense really, they seemed like they were in control, confident, really from their opening series. And it should be noted, Pittsburgh entered the game ranked number 19th nationally in interceptions. So I repeat, he completed 61% of his passes, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. For the performance, and that's Tyler Shuck I'm speaking of, for the performance against the Pittsburgh Panthers, quarterbacks starting it off with an A. This hill is just going to keep going up. So I'm going to pause right here. I'm going to exhale. Whew. Can I breathe again at a normal pace? Talking about exhaling, that's Card Nation when they saw Isaac Brown starting in the backfield against Pittsburgh. And then exhaled again when they see him get the ball. And you could tell he's his normal self. He runs for 93 yards, averages 7.2 yards per carry against the Panthers with 2 touchdowns. Duke Watson, 69 yards, had a big ball game. Really like to see those 2 getting involved. Keywan Brown got some carries. Kind of the only ding on the report card for the running backs would be Don Chaney. Didn't get much action, but he saw some when the Cardinals were backed up basically in their own end zone, tackled for a safety. But the play of Isaac Brown and Duke Watson, Keywan Brown will throw in there. Running backs against Pitt. A. Wide receivers. Corey Brooks, 4 catches, went over 1,000 yards on the season. He was targeted 11 times. So kind of a little bit of a ding there. Chris Bell gets 103 yards, most of that coming on a 68-yard touchdown catch to help the second half get started. Kind of Louisville put the foot down and said, we're going to continue to do what we're doing against you, Pittsburgh. Blue Hicks, as I mentioned, one of the things in my likes. 6 catches, 63 yards, obviously a career day for him. Kid's got a bright future for the Cardinals. Wide receivers, for your performance against Pittsburgh, how can we not? It's an A. We've got A's on the board so far. Tight ends. Not much in the passing game. Nate Kariski targeted 4 times, caught 2. Mark Redmond without a catch in the game. So not too involved in the passing game, but you also got to give them some points for helping Louisville's ground game do as well as it did, helping Louisville's pass protection doing well as it did. While not a huge, clear, obvious impact, we're going to go ahead and dish out another, we'll say A- for the tight ends against the Pittsburgh Panthers. Offensive line. It's a group that's been playing really well as of recent, and they continue to do so against the Pitt Panthers. And if you're going to talk about the O-line against the Pitt Panthers, you have to start with Monroe Mills. Got a PFF grade of 9-1.5, which put him in PFF's national team following the weekend's action. You had Michael Gonzalez, Pete Nigra playing every snap. Panthers held below their season average of 3.5 sacks a game and 8.7 tackles for a loss per game. Both stats that put the Panthers in amongst top 5 nationally coming into the game. So you really got to credit them for that. And really helped with the ground game. Kept Tyler Shuck clean for the most part. The performance against the Pitt Panthers, how can you not give the offensive line an A? Defensive line. Just like we have to start with Monroe Mills on the offensive line. When we're speaking about the defensive line against Pitt, you got to start with Ashton Gelati. All-American, 3 tackles for loss, 2 of those for a sack. Highly graded out by Pro Football Focus. Ashton Gelati's grade was so well on Pro Football Focus, he made their All-ACC team following the weekend's action. Defensive front helped keep that offense in check. An offense that was gaining over 350 yards of yards per game, just 265 against the Cardinals. Cardinals had 3 interceptions. The consistent pressure from that defensive front certainly aided to that possibility. For their play against Pittsburgh, the defensive line, I'm giving y'all an A+. Linebackers. Stanquan Clark had himself a game. And it should be noted that his game started after he missed a tackle that led to a large run for the Panthers and on their opening drive that almost led to a touchdown. Why didn't it lead to a touchdown? Because Stanquan Clark had an interception in the end zone. He added a second interception later in the game after Pittsburgh had stopped Louisville at the goal line. He intercepts a pass at the 15-yard line. Next play, Isaac Brown takes it and like, look, there's the house. I'm gone. Great game for Stanquan Clark. TJ Quinn led the team with 9 tackles. He was all over the place. I would have to say this was the best game for that dynamic duo, TJ Quinn and Stanquan Clark, that we've seen all year. And for that, and for the game-changing plays by Stanquan Clark, the Louisville linebackers are going to get their highest grade of the season. They're following in the footsteps of the defensive line. The ability to bounce back against it from a performance like they had, again, also for the defensive line. Like the performance they had against Stanford, to come back and play that way against a better team in Pittsburgh and make the plays that you guys made with some consistency. Hey, linebackers, well done. A+. Let's keep that up. We like getting good grades. That should be motivating. Do it again on Saturday in Lexington. Defensive backs. Still using last week's loss against Stanford as the baseline, which, amongst other things, 2 very costly penalties. Penalties Jeff Brom called devastating. That basically said, here's 20 free yards. Go ahead and bring your kicker out and kick that game-winning field goal. Otherwise, Louisville gone to overtime, and who knows. But that was then. This is now. Louisville won 37-9. Corey Thornton got an interception for a second straight week. Good for him. Good for the Cardinals. 4 pass breakups by the secondary. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty dang good. Helped keep Pittsburgh out of the end zone until the 4th quarter, until the game was way decided. Just allowing 1 touchdown in the game. For their play against the Pittsburgh Panthers, you're seeing a theme. The theme's going to continue. Defensive backs, A-. We got A's across the board. That's 2 out of the last 3 weeks. That Stanford game stings. Special teams. They were pretty special against Pittsburgh. Brock Travelstead, well done. 3 for 3 on his field goal attempts. Made all of his extra point attempts. 2 punts. Average, slightly above average. 1 inside the 20. Corey Brooks returning kicks. He gets the ball in his hands and you're like, uh-oh. He and Isaac Brown. It seemed like he was about to break one. He had no business even getting a couple yards on, but along of 22 in that neighborhood. Special teams certainly did not hurt the Cardinals against Pittsburgh. So yep, we're gonna do it. They deserved it. Special teams, you get an A. Wonder what the coaching staff's gonna get. The coaching staff, first remarkable job keeping the guys focused. As I mentioned in the likes and dislikes, I could easily have seen after the Stanford loss, this team kind of just throwing it in. Guys deciding, you know what, I'm going to start working for next year, maybe start thinking about the portal, what I want to do, all that kind of stuff. Distractions. That wasn't the case. Big time kudos, I was looking for the right word, for the coaching staff, for Jeff Brom and his group, and keeping his guys focused and on the task at hand, still playing with the determination that they've got something to play for. That was big, because I did not expect that type of a performance after the performance we saw earlier. Play calling offensively, loved it, most of it. I understand giving guys opportunities, but when you've got a couple of freshman running backs doing really well, I'd like to have seen them in the backfield when you were backed up. You basically at your own goal line ended up in a safety, but at least the safety didn't stop a potential shutout. That would have been tragedy. Ron English in the defense, Jeff Brom, Ron English, and the guys on the defensive side of the ball. If I wasn't holding this in my hand, I would applaud. I mean, the performance at all 3 levels, defensively, significantly better than we saw against Stanford. Also would have liked to have seen Isaac Brown reach that 100-yard mark, but that's not a complaint. That's not That's nothing to ding a grade over, that's for sure. That's just me being greedy. Offensively, from the go, guys were locked in. Defensively, the first drive were a lot of uh-ohs until Stanquan Clark reached up and got that interception. But from then on, locked in. Coaching staff for the performance and the win against Pittsburgh. You get an A. We've got A's across the board. Sure wish we could erase Stanford. Offensively, let's keep it short. It was a nice balance, nice mix of run and pass. Deep shots, keep it close. Kept Pittsburgh guessing. 505 yards total offense. No turnovers. That's an A+, my friends. Overall, defensively, 265 yards is all you gave up. You had 3 interceptions, 2 sacks, 5 tackles for a loss. Didn't allow a score until into the fourth quarter after the game had been decided. Like your counterparts on offense, especially because of how you bounced back. We're going to give you the bounce back curve, going from an A to an A+. Let's go D. So that makes 3 straight weeks with report cards that I did not anticipate dishing out. Straight A's against Clemson, followed by some F's at Stanford, followed by straight A's at home against Pittsburgh. Inconsistent. And that has been the issue with the Cardinals in 2024. Hopefully, they figured it out. Because up next, short drive to the east to Lexington for the Governor's Cup. Cardinals a slight favorite. ESPN FPI, the Football Power Index, gives them a better than 70% chance of winning that game. It's been a while. Cardinals have lost 5 straight in the series. In a series, really, my humble opinion is they shouldn't lose, but occasionally on a fluke upset. That should be the fact, but it's not. That's the opposite of reality, and the Cardinals need to change that. Jeff Brom knows, said in the postgame, I'm from here. Means a lot to me, means a lot to the team. Can they come back with the Governor's Cup? We'll find out, and we'll discuss it on the next hike.